Planning Commission meeting to order. First order of business is consent to agenda, the minutes from last meeting. I think it can be found in the first couple pages here in the motion page on page 5. Nope, I'm sorry, on page, there's no motion page.
1.
Is it on 1?
Yeah, first page.
Backwards, you're right.
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes.
And I'll second it.
Okay, motion made by Soini, seconded by
Randy?
Randy, thank you. Alzheimer's moment there. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Second order of business, new business. Concept plan, replat of outlet A of Pay Delco, Lance Lewis, Lewis Industries, page 5. I can read the comments here real quick. The city has received a concept plan application submitted by Lance Lewis, Lewis Industries to replat outlet A of Pay Delco, current railroad bed. Please review the attached application and proposed layout of the plat. Lance Lewis and Scott Marlin will be in attendance via Zoom. Mr. Lewis's intentions are to build over future expansion of the railroad bed and combine the areas highlighted in yellow railroad bed lots 1 and 6, block 1, and the purple highlighted area into one parcel. The combining of such will ultimately be the decision of Stearns County. Mr. Lewis is currently going through the process to obtain ownership of outlet A at this time. The city will not accept the final plat and application for such until ownership is secured and clear title obtained, and Mr. Lewis is aware of this. At the time of the final plat, it will be noted that the lots are as is, that the lots as is are non-buildable and landlocked. Therefore, each tract will need to be conveyed for purposes of attachment to the contiguous lot? Is that the right word, contiguous?
Yep.
Okay. Down the road a bit, a development agreement and parkland dedication will be addressed. They have the option to ask to have the parkland dedication fee waived as they so desire. And I believe we have Lance with us via technology.
Yeah, so I guess, I don't know what questions you have. I've never done anything like this before, but really what we're looking at doing here is the railroad bed on the whole mini street. The center part of the industrial park was never abated correctly. We're just going through the process of getting the old railroad abated, going back to all the owners that own the property in that corridor. And I'm just heading it up because obviously we're the ones looking at building sooner rather than later across the old tracks. So I thought Scott was going to be part of this. He's doing all the surveying work, but I don't know if he's in the lobby or missing or what, but I mean, I'm talking the virtual lobby.
Yeah, no, oh, no.
Okay. I guess at this point, really, it's just what questions do you guys have or concerns we need to address before we get too far into it?
Lance, the only question I had, and I reached out to Nate Bork and had a conversation with him, and I understand that you're also involved with Pay Delco, is that?
Correct, yeah. So I would actually serve as the treasurer. Pat Flanders would be the president yet, as of yet.
And I guess my only input, I don't even know that it's an opinion, but my only thought is that, you know, that property obviously has value and that, you know, that somebody at some point I may want to place a value on that and that, you know, some kind of a payment be made back to Pay Delco for that property. That's really my only thought on the entire matter, to be honest with you.
So what's really interesting is the way this abatement works. The actual owner is the Ampey family and not Pay Delco based on how it was plotted.
Okay.
So we've been working with the Ampey family to get this whole issue corrected. Dave Voss corrected it on the other side of Minnie Street, and they actually had to pay the Ampies to correct it. The Ampie family this time has agreed to just be so kind as to, if we cover the legal fees and take care of all the work, they will just sign it over. So,
Okay,
yeah,
then it's probably a mute point.
really, it's a really unique situation based on title law that we're in right now, and technically Paydelco never actually took ownership of the railroad at all.
That addresses my concern then.
I'm learning a heck of a lot about land issues, I'll tell you that.
Okay, any question?
Any other? I would look for a motion then.
I'll make the motion to approve the concept plan of the replat of Outlot A, Paydelco, and recommend such to the city council.
And I second it.
Motion made by Sonia, seconded by Randy. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
And then, we want to set the second step here, Jennifer, is that correct?
That is correct. They're looking at trying to speed this process up just a tad bit. So we're kind of running on a short timeline. So their next step in the process would be to submit a preliminary plat to the city. The planning board would hold a public hearing on it, hear any pros or for or against it, and then that would also be recommended to council.
I would make a motion to set the preliminary plat public hearing for the replat of Outlet A Paydelco for Monday, March 15th, 2021 at 6:05 PM.
I'll second it.
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. I think we're good there, Lance, if you're still with us.
Yeah, no, just really, I appreciate everything you've done. Scott's going to be continuing to communicate, and yeah, thank you for helping us.
No problem.
All right, thank you.
Okay, on with new business. B, yard maintenance, Stefan Rink. Am I pronouncing that correctly, sir? Stefan Rink, page 12, I believe we're on. Stefan Rink, a city resident whom resides on Hudson Street, will be in attendance to address the planning board regarding his proposal that the council consider adopting an ordinance governing yard maintenance. Mayor Sean Rinke has asked that the planning board hear him as the board deals with various land use issues. If you'd care to...
Because we have people here, it's easier to keep that
Yep.
microphone.
Yep.
For you.
I made 2 copies of the items that I will talk about in my short little presentation, and they are in here, and that's what I'm going to talk about, and you guys can share those
Okay.
if you like. I'm also wearing gloves because I was just vaccinated 3 weeks ago. My second shot is tomorrow, and I'm around hundreds of kids a day, and so that's the reason why I'm doing this.
No problem.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for providing me with the opportunity to address you. I'm scheduled to make a presentation for about 15 minutes. However, should I need a few minutes longer, I appreciate your understanding, and I will also welcome questions and comments on the conclusion of the presentation. Before I begin my presentation, I would like to introduce myself in order that you know who I am, because most of you have no clue who I am. While I was born in Germany, I'm a U.S. citizen. And I received my bachelor's and master's degrees at universities in the western U.S., moved to Minnesota to pursue PhD studies at the University of Minnesota. Later, I attended the University of St. Thomas, obtained my teaching credentials, and have been teaching at the college and secondary levels for more than 30 years. I'm currently teaching at Melrose Area High School, where I'm also the National Honor Society advisor for the past 12 years. I was also the collaborator on one of the most widely used distributed German language textbooks in the US and have presented research papers at national and international conferences. Besides that, I was a head coach for boys and girls soccer, head coach in tennis as well. And I am involved actively in community service for the past 12 years. I help with food shelf collections. I conduct personally a Red Cross blood drive every year with my group. I work with Special Olympics throughout Minnesota, and so on. I respect the privacy of others and expect the same in return. However, due to the actions of my neighbors, that would be the Brick family. One of those people is a council member now. And again, my aim is not to say anything derogatory or mean-spirited. I just want to put the facts on the table. Yeah? And they're residing at 510 Hudson. I'm here tonight and hope that this committee will make appropriate recommendations to the City Council on the matter of yard maintenance. The issues go back to 2017. Until the fall of 2017, there were neighborly and positive relationships between myself and the Bricks. However, since the fall of 2017, the Bricks left their yard untidy, and this is documented there, and I will refer to specific dates as well. They left their yard untidy, rarely mowing the lawn, creeping Charlie spreading throughout the yard, and no cleanup of leaves. Lots of leaves blew over from the property, from the Brick property onto my property in the spring of 2018, and I constantly had to bag leaves and dispose of them. I believe that responsible homeowners clean up their own yard and do not expect other neighbors to clean up for them. And again, this might sound petty to you, and you might say, why is this guy taking the time to even address you here right now? But it becomes a major nuisance after a while. If you clean your yard quite well and you take care of it, and you see your neighbor doesn't, and all of a sudden you basically sit there and you say, oh goody, in a week or two I have to clean it up again. In the spring I have to do basically the spring cleanup because debris, etc. comes my way. At that point you are saying, I wish something would be done. Yeah? In the spring of 2018, leaves blew over and I constantly had to bag them and dispose of them. In the fall of 2018, the same thing occurred. No rakings of leaves, no disposal of leaves. You see the 4 pictures on pages 1 and 2 in this folder that I provided. At this point, I contacted Ms. Brick via email, and there was an email exchange between September 18th and September 26, 2018. She admitted that the yard had not been taken care of well and reiterated in her email of September 26, 18, quote, noise, leaves, fence, anything else will be dealt with when and if we have the time, financial ability, and or inclination to do so, unquote. And she concluded, quote, please do not contact us again, unquote. Indeed, I have not had any interaction with the Bricks since then, as she told me, don't contact us anymore, all right? And it's unfortunate, but that's the way it is. Throughout the fall of 2018, the Bricks once again did not bag their leaves, and by the spring 2019, my yard was covered by leaves and other debris that had blown into my yard. In the spring of 2019, this is in April, I called at that time Mayor Thompson and explained the problem. And I also still have that correspondence, and I forwarded that to a former member of your committee, that's Alicia LeBeau. Mr. Thompson said that he would talk to them. Indeed, leaves in the front were raked and bagged. However, instead of bringing the plastic leaf bags to the compost site, they were thrown next to the stairs in front of the property. Several weeks later, they were moved to the back of the house and were left there and still are there today, 2 years later. And you see this in the pictures. There are these bags in the back. Throughout the years, they opened, and then basically all of this stuff started over again. And I Again, I'm not passing judgment, I'm just going to tell you the facts. I was in Europe for 5 weeks in June, July 2019, returned in mid-July. Their yard was overgrown with weeds, and again, people, I respect other people's privacy. If they want to have an overgrown yard, it's none of my business. If it doesn't negatively affect me, people can do whatever they want with their private lawn. Additionally, now a large above-ground pool had been set up. However, the water in the pool soon turned to a dark greenish color as it was not properly maintained. The conditions on August 3rd, 2019, August 11th, and August 17th are in this binder. Note also, when you look at one of those pictures, that the hoses were connected to the pool at the time. I contacted Mayor Thompson again on 8/24/19 about my concerns, and specifically about the drainage of the green and bacteria-infested water in their pool, because all of a sudden I got very concerned, where are they going to put that water? And that pool was basically only a few feet away from the fence line. Mr. Thompson did not offer a resolution that would have protected my property from the pool water running onto my property. And indeed, on September 3rd, 1919, I noticed the drainage hose of the pool had been placed only a few feet away from my property, so that the water would also run onto my property, as there's a slope near the property lines. And basically, there's a picture of this as well. The minute I saw this became a major concern of mine. If you put a drainage hose, just a few feet away from that property, it gives me an impression that neighbor doesn't care if that water drains onto a neighbor's property. Based on the size of the pool, it contained more than 5,000 gallons of water. That's the best I can do by just looking at the dimension of that pool. Shortly thereafter, the pool was drained, and this created a large wet area on my property, because I walked out there and I could walk through a whole bunch of it was just all wet there. And I thought, why are we doing this? I was extremely disappointed in the way that had been going. I think there would have been, if we would have had a solution, I think everybody would have felt better about this. I would have had a more positive view of my neighbors, and my neighbors would have said, hey, we have done something that also did not negatively affect the other person who lives next to us. As Mr. Thompson was unable to address my concerns, I contacted Council Member Alicia Lebeau, who was sincerely trying to resolve the aforementioned matters, as well as an additional issue that pertained to the property line dispute between myself and the Bricks that came to be in 2020. Between October 2019 and July 2020, there were several times when I communicated with Ms. Lebeau. However, even when Ms. Lebeau offered to function as a mediator between the two parties, and I was willing to meet with Ms. Lebeau and the Bricks, as I was informed by Ms. Lebeau that Ms. Brick had no interest in a meeting to resolve any matters. In the fall 2020, again, this is just last fall, no raking or disposal of leaves, which means that the Brick neighborhood neighbors will have to clean up once again for them this spring. I'm not the only neighbor. That property borders 5 other, in total, 5 properties, and I think other people are also affected by this. It should be noted that since her election to the Painesville City Council, Ms. Brick has represented herself on Facebook as an easily accessible person. On January 25th, 2020, she posted, quote, "I love communicating with everyone about positive change we can make in our community, so please reach out with questions or concern," unquote. Apparently, that does not include her neighbors. And she stated on Facebook on November 4th, 2020, quote, "However, there's one thing I promise every day for the next 4 years, to do my best not to let you down, and not to let you down," unquote. Well, Ms. Brick and her husband have let their neighbors down by letting their backyard deteriorate and expecting neighbors to clean up what they refuse to do. I believe that residents should hold elected officials responsible for what they say and do. While Ms. Brick apparently did not care about her neighbors being negatively affected for years because of her actions or inactions, Ms. Brick is quick to criticize others. During the Painesville Special Council meeting on December 19th, 2019, pertaining to was entitled Sober Living Home in Residential District. The following is on the record. Quote, Megan Brick expressed concerns with sex offenders and the notification of such. Brick is also concerned on the upkeep of the home, including garbage and snow removal, unquote. While actively engaging in the behavior for which Ms. Brick criticizes others, she can certainly be regarded as hypocritical. I hope that the City Council will step in and create guidelines and/or ordinances that ensure that homeowners maintain their property in a manner that does not negatively affect other neighbors. I hope that the City Council will create guidelines pertaining to the draining of pools so that neighbors' yards do not get flooded if an irresponsible neighbor places a hose just a few feet away from the property line and doesn't care if large amounts of water flood a neighbor's yard. Thank you for your attention, and I'm open to questions.
Thank you, Stefan.
I think you answered pretty much anything. Covered everything.
I actually have a, not to put Jennifer or Brad on the spot, but just looking at things that are already in place, maybe you guys could educate me on the pool stuff. I understand that it has to be in a fenced yard. Beyond that, I'm a little sketchy. Do you guys know offhand, or is that something we have to research?
I don't know offhand, I don't believe, does it state so specifically on pools?
I just know it has to be in a fenced area. 'Cause
I do know that if you're, like, let's say your garage drain, you can't discharge that on your neighbor's property. You know, I would guess that would apply the same.
Okay, and the reason I ask these folks this stuff, and is in my opinion, I'm just one person on this board, but, you know, and I've experienced difficult relationships with neighbors, so I feel that for you. I don't know that you're gonna be satisfied with any resolution that we come up with, possibly not, but what I question is maybe there are some things already in place that you could utilize. And so I ask about the pool specifically. And the other thing that I would encourage, and maybe you have already looked into this, is I don't know. I believe Stearns County has a noxious weed ordinance. And so there might be some situations where if someone's not maintaining their property and they actually have noxious weeds growing, that's already being covered under some ordinance things, and again, I don't know that 100%, but I believe that is the case, that Stearns County has a noxious weed ordinance. You know, there's a saying that says, good neighbors, good fences make good neighbors, and yeah. I, as one member of this board, would struggle to put an ordinance on the books based on your unfortunate situation, but I am only one member.
Is there a possibility, because I've thought about this, and this is just something I want to throw out, it might have been easier, and I'm not sure if that can be done, if a hose would have been running from that pool, and this would have been very easy to do, to the street, and then to let the water drain into the street. Is that legal? Is that illegal? Because that would have solved this. This would have been illegal.
Yes.
So you're saying that bacteria-infested waters going into the street is illegal, but neighbors are supposed to endure the pain of having their backyard flooded.
Well, he could have discharged the water onto the street.
So he could have?
He could.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. Okay, so that is a remedy.
I think it's a good one.
Yeah, because I thought about this, if you just would have put in a long hose, done. There would have been no issue there for my part. I would have actually said thank you for being considerate.
Yes. Yeah, the other, I guess, point that I'll make is there are folks such as myself who don't rake their leaves, and I won't even say I'm guilty of that because I don't feel guilty. I actually let them go back into the grass by mulching them in spring. So I feel your concern, and I appreciate your willingness to come here and share it. But I also as a board member, have to represent everyone in the community, not, and it's always challenging to not act upon the most vocal person in the community. And so there are a lot of people who do not rake their leaves, and I would truly struggle to put an ordinance on the book that would somehow mandate that, because there are folks that use that as a natural remedy, a natural fertilizer by mulching it back into their yards in the spring. Although I understand there are folks such as yourself who take great pride in a spotless lawn in the fall, and I can appreciate that, I truly can. But I, as one member, again, of this board, also have to consider that there are other folks who don't see that as, and some even may see that as a negative, that you're taking a byproduct that naturally would go back and the nutrients would go back into the ground and you're taking it away. So it's a challenge to balance all sides. But I do understand your significant frustrations, because I have been there. I have dealt with difficult neighbors, and I don't have a remedy, and I don't know that a city ordinance is the remedy either, but he actually moved. Well, he sold his parents' house, let's put that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you're saying, if I could just comment on this, if you're saying, well, I like to mulch, I like to have my leaves on there, I am not opposed to that. Feel free to do so. But please make sure that you're also keeping those leaves in the space. And I know this sounds really strange right now, but look at it from my perspective, where I'm saying, well, if you don't rake your leaves and there's no fence, you're basically inconveniencing others. And I have no problem with somebody, if you want to have a mountain of leaves in your backyard, feel free to do so. I have no problem with this. But at the same time, if you don't have a fence, or you do have whatever, that does not protect your neighbors from this, and all of a sudden, you have this entire amount of leaves on another property, you're basically inconveniencing another neighbor. That's just, it goes both ways. So if I say I want to respect my neighbors, that's fine, but it goes both ways. If you want to keep all of this stuff on there, use it for mulch, it's just fine. But at the same time, respect others who meticulously, as you pointed out, try to do this in the fall. I like to have it clean. This is what gardeners have told me. Please do with this. And the next spring, your yard will be fine again. And that has worked quite well. And that's just basically my counterpoint to that. But
And I can appreciate that. You know,
You mentioned that there's 5 other neighbors. Have you spoken with them? Do they have the same issues?
one of my neighbors is Tom and Jerry, the police officer here. He's behind my property. He built a fence there, so this does not, these leaves do not blow into his yard anymore. So, you know, it's just one of those things. I talked to him once before about this, and so he said, well, I don't have much of this because I only border that corner of that property. There's only one corner that it's borders, and he does not get much in there.
I would recommend a fence.
Well, that's another issue, as Ms. Welling probably knows. Were you the one who, we got another issue on the fence, and I can, if you want to take a couple of minutes to do this, this is what I pointed out in my presentation. Since I was contacted through Miss LeBeau contacted me in the spring, I don't know the exact date, and said, well, you will hear from Miss Brick. And as she told me, she didn't want to hear from me in 18, and all my correspondence were forwarded to Miss LeBeau. I keep all of them in a file. I'm always respectful in everything that I do, so everybody can look at these. And all of a sudden I got an email saying, well, we would like to build a fence. And I thought at first, oh, that's a great idea. However, right on the border there, at least from what I'm only the second owner of the house, and the house has existed since 1930. I was told where this property line was, and there's one big tree in there, and a fence goes right, it's on the tree, literally on the tree, and goes around it. So and I said, that is odd, why is this fence going around it? And the former owner, I bought the house 17 years ago, was also a city council member in olden times. He told me that this is where the property line is. I said, well, is this tree on my or the other person's property? And he said, this tree is on your property, your side, that's why the fence goes around it. So when I got this email, I thought, okay, let's do this. And then I was given through Ms. LeBeau a diagram of what they wanted to build, and all of a sudden I saw that my beloved tree that was no longer mine. And at that point I said, well, I'm not so sure where the property lines are. And at that point, the Bricks had a survey done, and then the survey was complete. And again, I have no problem with believing somebody who is doing a survey that they're trying to do a good job. And indeed, the property line was over from my property. But then came the issue up, and this pertains also to the city here, what kind of permit should be granted to building that particular fence. And then I was told, then I even said, if you build the fence like you originally intended, I am willing to mow on the other side, and I'm willing to give you in writing something that this is your property, that I'm willing to just maintain it on this side until I am gone or I'm leaving my home, etc. And that was apparently not acceptable. And at that point, I suggested to Ms. LeBeau if we could have a meeting and sit down and talk about this. And then I was told, nope, there's no way we're going to do it our way or the highway. And at that point, I asked an attorney to look into this, and there's actually 2 attorneys involved. And all of a sudden, I realized that there are ways for me to protect my rights of basically saying I've maintained this property more than 15 years, and I can prove this. And these people have had several lawsuits on this that they have won, and they said, if you want to move ahead, you can do this. I'm not a big fan of this. I like to solve things with people in a friendly and thoughtful manner, but at the same time, I don't want all of a sudden a fence being built in a way that is right basically on the property line from what I understand. And so that's where that stands.
Okay.
But that's another issue in
It is, yeah, clearly. Yeah, clearly.
So,
I would ask that do you have any closing comments before we?
no, I wanted to just thank you for taking the time to let me speak to you, and hopefully you can do something. I know this is not, as you said, people can look at it from different angles. I understand that, but I also believe that with proper communication, where both sides explain and their issues, maybe the city can do something and encourage somehow the residents to be more thoughtful in regards to this and cleaning up their yards. I'm not even saying there has to be necessarily an ordinance, but if there is something by the city that is not perhaps absolutely mandatory, but definitely encouraged, that this may be something that would resolve this matter. I think so. And maybe one could put even in this deal here, if people put another pool close to a property fence, not to let the water drain onto the property of others. And maybe the city can encourage even people, if you need to use a hose, to let it run and drain into the street. I think that might be a proper solution. Yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Open the board comments here if there are any discussions.
Do you have my rules? Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think you're right. We do have an ordinance that covers mowing and water is easily solved, which that's just incourteous, really.
And I would also, Stefan, I would recommend that just on a, not that my recommendations are worth anything, a hill of beans, but I would recommend you do determine the legal borders and such, you know, and it sounded like there was, you know, at some point some discussion or option of building a fence, and I would encourage you to revisit that if there is an opportunity, but I'm just, for whatever my opinion is.
No, and I agree with you, but what do you mean?
I would say if there is a survey done, or if you would like to do a survey where you could then legally put up a fence on the property line or on your side of the property line, that might alleviate a lot of stress in your life, you know, as far as dealing with the situation.
Yeah, but at the same time, I have to counter this one. I have always conducted myself in a way where I have never needed a quote-unquote fence, because I never had to keep anything inside of my property because I respect other people's rights.
I understand.
So that has never entered my mind. Virtually, I have to tell you this, all of my neighbors have fences.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it was just my
But I
personal
understand.
thought.
Yep, I understand.
If there are no other discussions, I would make a motion to not advance this to the city council, given the information presented.
I'll second it.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? I appreciate your proposal. We're not going to advance it to the informality to the council, but that doesn't mean that the discussion doesn't percolate up. And so I appreciate you bringing it to us.
And I hope so, because I think, and I hope that others like me will also be protected, you know, about this. But anyways, thank you.
Thank you. Old business. No old business? That's how I read that? So we move on to informational, and I turn it over to Mr. Mellon.
Yeah, so obviously it's been really cold and that nobody's really doing a lot of work right now. There's been a lot of phone calls, a fair amount of phone calls, people are starting to plan in spring, so I expect it to pick up.
Sure. Certainly. Okay, item B, under informational, next meeting, Monday, March 15th. Is there anything we need to do action with that, Jennifer, or is that just information for us?
That's just information, but you will have that public hearing that night.
Yeah, oh, that's the one we already set.
The one we just said, yeah.
Any other things to discuss? Otherwise, I would call the meeting adjourned.